Right. Welcome to Hello Malaysia. I am your host Sureti Sanusi, and you just watched the montage for the Royal Malaysian and I have Sri Ahmad Kamarul Zaman, the Deputy Chief of Navy, to talk about the anniversary and also the history of Navy. And welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Right, you look very, you know. I mean, I've always interested in men in uniform, but this one looks really good. Anyway, let's talk about, before we talk about the Royal Malaysian Navy, let's talk about you.
Okay.
Right. So, how did you get interested being a Navy?
Well, I mean, was from the Royal Military College back then. So obviously, you see a lot of military around. My father was a military officer, he's an army officer.
Right.
And next thing that I would like to go for and just join the Navy and see the world. So
why Navy? Why not Air Force? You know, there's Air Force and, you know, the Malaysian Army.
Yeah, the most common cliche that you say is that join the Navy and see the world.
Okay.
And that's what I did, and I obviously did, you know, went around and see a lot of places around the world.
So that's the reason. What will be your experience that you could not forget until now?
Well, I mean, there have been many experience or defining moments, should I say, over the last 38 years in the Navy now. But the most prominent one, obviously, is involved directly in the rescue operations of MT Bunga Laurel. Way back in 2011. There was one of those very, I would say, action moment for me.
Right.
And
you were leading, obviously.
Well, I was directing the operations 7,000 kilometers away. You know, that was happening in the Gulf of Eden, and I was in Kuala Lumpur in operations here.
I see. Okay, now let's talk about Royal Malaysian Navy. Maybe you can tell us the history behind it.
Well, I mean, the next week, basically on 27th of April, would be the 81st anniversary. So way back in the history goes back to 1934.
Right.
That was in Singapore, actually, where the humble beginnings event started with the Strait Settlement Naval Volunteer Reserve Unit that was formed, where 400 personnel at that point in time. With, I was told, you know, boats, wooden boats.
Right.
And that's where the history of the Royal Malaysian Navy started. It was then Singapore, it was part of Malaya.
Back then. Yeah. And after that, how did it evolve from then until now?
Well, it has certainly has evolved a lot. In fact, maybe rather than it's been transformed, really, rather than I would say evolved.
Okay.
I would say it's been transformed from a brown water navy to now what we term as a blue water navy.
Okay. What does that mean?
Well, it used to be from, you're talking about the boats I described just now, you know, petrol boats, more of a riverine, sort of a petrol riverine force.
Right.
As to now where we are as a blue water navy, where we have global outreach, where our, you know, naval ships are present in many operations, right from, you know, the Gulf of Eden at one point in time, Straits of Malacca, South China Sea, and other places, and we are also involved in many exercises with our partners around the world. And with respect to the capability that we have over the years, has been transformed from just usual conventional boats to a very advanced, you know, three-dimensional warfare kind of a capability, where we have, you know, not just surface ships, we do have aircraft as well, helicopters, and also submarines now. So it is three-dimensional rather than just a one-dimensional warfare capability at a point in time.
Right. And could you tell us the mission and vision of the Royal Malaysian Navy?
Well, I mean, when we talk about the Royal Malaysian Navy, the role of the Royal Malaysian Navy is obviously to safeguard the sovereignty of the maritime waters of Malaysia. It is a big task. Especially so, Malaysia is a maritime nation. If you look at the vastness of our maritime waters, we are talking about over 600,000 square kilometers of waters that needs to be safeguarded. and over 60,000 kilometers of coastline, covering both the East Malaysia and the West Malaysia. This is a huge challenge for us.
Right.
And if I were to look at why Malaysia is a maritime nation, if you look at history, then you know, during the Malacca Sultanate of the 14th century, for example,
right.
How Malacca was known right from China to Portugal. It's just a small state, and I like to relate to this one of these ancient charts. We call it charts in the Navy. We call it charts.
Okay.
You call it maps.
Okay.
So in the ancient charts that I saw, the size of Malacca at that point in time, Malacca was actually the peninsular Malaysia now, is bigger than India.
Really?
I mean, it's just a perspective of how important was Malacca then,
during that time.
That time. So you look at that, the significance of how, when you have a force, a maritime force, the significance of how the importance of the Malacca at that point in time, in terms of actually economic domain, for example, provide that significance to the other parts of the world. And from the economic perspective, I think Malaysia, now with the dependence, a lot of our resources, income come from oil and gas, for example. 80% of Malaysia's trade transit through the water.
Right.
80% of the energy for Japan pass through Malaysian waters.
Yes.
And a lot of other activities like fishing industry, you know, minerals, and even maritime tourism is very significant. So if you look at host from that kind of perspective,
right,
Malaysia is a maritime nation.
Right.
From the perspective of security, for example, if you were to look at what's happening around the region with respect to how its impact on the security of Malaysia, and how its impact on maybe bilateral relations or multilateral relations between Malaysia and other countries. A lot of issues are very much related to maritime security or maritime domain issues, like
I mean, especially when we have countries very near to the Peninsula of Malaysia.
However, to ensure that to safeguard our national interests and maritime security interests, we need significant, I would say, maritime capability. So when I talk about maritime capability, that's not means Navy alone. You know, Navy plus all the other agencies that can contribute to security of the Malaysian territorial waters. Yes.
Right. Okay. Now, before we go into the discussion, we have a clip on Royal Malaysian Navy. So let's take a look at the clip right now.
Transformation in the Royal Malaysian Navy. It is happening on an accelerating pace. The world we are living in now has transformed tremendously from what it used to be decades ago. Today, another level of security is needed to safeguard our nation. Malaysia is a maritime country by default. How creatively and intelligently we innovate will decide how well we are able to protect this nation. The pace of change demands lightning responses. It demands fast-thinking capabilities. It demands problem-solving attitudes. These are the challenges facing nations all over the world. And it is those nations that innovate that have become the most stable economies, the most successful, the most secure, and the most powerful. Since 1934, the Royal Malaysian Navy has been constantly developing itself to stay ahead. Since then, the RMN has become one of the largest and most technologically advanced navies in Southeast Asia. To facilitate this transformation, the RMN has further emphasized on development of human capital by sharpening the Navy people's minds to think innovatively, which leads to new discoveries, new inventions, and new strategies. The capabilities of future generations are being nurtured carefully by the RMN, so that the knowledge-based workforce is constantly uplifted to the next level. And education is at the very core of managing this transition, as the RMN is poised to be a world-class Navy. Here in the RMN, defense capabilities are developed to new standards. It is a unique circle of defense innovations that put RMN on the leading edge of change. Surface, air, subsurface, and information warfare components are blended together as a composite fighting unit to carry out its mission to protect Malaysia's sovereignty and maritime interests. Royal Malaysian Navy, towards a world-class Navy.
That was a very interesting clip. That I would like to know, when you kept mentioning capabilities. We have capabilities to take care of our maritime, especially along the Straits of Malacca. So what kind of capabilities are you talking about?
Let me try to define capability in something that you and maybe the public can understand.
Right.
When we talk about capability, it's not necessarily just ships, aircraft, weapons and stuff.
Right.
So I like to call it like hardware.
Okay.
So capability, when you talk about capability, you must talk about hardware, and very importantly, the next one is humanware. That's two combined together is basically capability.
Right.
So when we talk about capability development for the Royal Malaysian Navy, it is something that it cannot be realized over a very short time. You have to plan it in series of the Malaysia's plan, for example, of the 5-year plan over the years. Obviously, we want to have everything,
right?
But you cannot have everything because we may not necessarily need those capability that we desire.
And on top of that will be costs.
Exactly. The next thing is obviously the affordability factor. That's very, very important. We are cognizant of the fact that it's very important that we need to have a balance force.
Right.
So for the Royal Malaysian Navy, obviously we do have a number of ships, to be exact, basically 44 ships and aircrafts, and also our 2 submarines as far as the hardware is concerned.
Yeah.
However, I must say that 66% of our fleet are over 25 years of age.
Right. Yeah. Is that old, or is that,
yes,
acceptable?
Effectively, if you're talking about ships, anything over, let's say, 20 years is considered, old ships.
Right.
Yeah.
But even though it's an old ship, let's say, let us call it an old ship, but I'm guessing the software is all updated, it's all current?
Certainly. I mean, I would look at that from a positive point, in the sense that even though we are constrained managing basically ships that are relatively old, but the fact that our maintenance culture that we have adopted over the years, we are very proud to say that some of the ships that we have maintained last over, some of which is over 40 years old.
Wow.
These are very simple petrol crafts made in UK, for example.
Right.
2 of those are still in service, and they are significantly like the what do you call that, workhorse of the Navy in providing just simple patrols. But more importantly is not what you have and how you use the assets that have been given to you. How you optimize the utilization of the assets is very, very important.
Right.
And that's coupled on to the point that I'm talking about, the human wear.
Right, okay. But before we go to the human wear, we have to go for a short break. Sure. So stay tuned to Hello Malaysia.
My precious little Nita, why did you leave me? How hard I try, my pain does not go away.
Papa! Papa!
My child has become a victim because of me.
Nita!
Pakcik, boleh saya tolong?
We cannot change the past, but we can protect our future if we act now.
Current issues, latest headlines, illuminating visuals. Everything right and now on Bernama News.
Halo, apa kabar pemirsa? Salam dari Jakarta. Sebuah program kerjasama Kantor Berita Indonesia Antara dengan Kantor Berita Malaysia bernama kembali hadir menjumpai Anda.
Welcome back to Hello Malaysia, and you are still with me and also the Vice Admiral Datuk Sri Ahmad Kamarul Zaman, the Deputy Chief of Navy, and we're talking about the Royal Malaysian Navy 81st anniversary. Wow, that's a lot of numbers. And of course, before we went for a break, we were talking about the hardware, which is the ships and submarines and the assets, or we call it. And now we will talk about the, like what the Admiral said, the human wear of the, it doesn't really matter if we have the most sophisticated assets. If you don't have the right people to use it, it doesn't really matter, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. When we talk about the human wear, in Navy we call these people Navy people. Navy people.
Navy people.
The Navy
okay.
people. So,
right.
And the Navy people that we talk about is not necessarily just who have served the Navy, who are serving. They include those who have served before, retired, and even though their families, we consider them
as Navy people. I see.
So this is very interesting because the most important assets that we believe that we in any organization that focuses on excellence is its people.
Right.
So.
And what kind of people are you looking for, especially?
Obviously, we would like to have people who are very passionate and very proud of what they're doing, and obviously competency is a very, very major issue, and to ensure that they are very competent to do what they are being given the task to do things. Right. They have to make sure that we have to make sure that they are equipped with the right level of skill sets.
What if you have people who are interested, but they have this massive bad seasick? They could not work on sea. How would you go beyond that?
Well, it's interestingly, a lot of people get seasick. I get seasick.
I get seasick all the time.
Sometimes, yeah.
Right.
But it's all in the mind. So when you get seasick, and if you feel that you have got people that is within inside the ship, that you got to ensure that they are safe.
Right, your safety.
That the trust, that the responsibility given to you to ensure that the ship is safe. And safe,
and
also got the crew
safe.
safe.
As well.
The seasick is basically just goes away.
Really?
Yeah. So the idea is to make sure that everybody is fully occupied.
Right.
So for the sailors, for those who get seasick, we just make sure that we give them enough jobs,
so that
keep them
they
busy.
Don't think about
yes,
right.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were saying, the human way, or the human capital of the Navy. Of course, you need someone who is very passionate. But now I think because we're going towards the future, it's not really. We don't really need people who are only good. I mean, they are healthy and physically fit. We also need people with brain, I think.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yes, yes. I mean, fitness is obviously an important factor because we want to make sure that because on board a ship is a very close environment, especially submarine, for example. For 32 personnel in a submarine.
Right, very small enclosure,
and everybody needs to be fit and healthy so that they're able to do their tasks and will not impact on other people's tasks.
Right.
And that relates to safety.
I see.
Yeah, so it is very important that we keep each other check.
Okay.
And we have to ensure that the ships are kept clean.
Right.
Crew are well fed with the right
food amount
and also the hygiene aspect is very, very critical on board.
Right.
You just imagine you are out at sea, if something goes wrong,
right.
you cannot send
you can't go back to the
the
land.
Yeah, and this important concept when we talk about the Navy people, I like to relate this concept called cradle to grave.
Okay.
Where it's not just the assets and ships that we talk about cradle to grave. When we plan something right from start on the paper until you dispose of it, managing costs, managing the maintenance is cradle to grave.
Okay.
So similarly, for the Navy people, we also look at it that perspective, in the sense that the children of the Navy people, we ensure that we take care of them.
Right.
For those, we give incentive for their excellence in their academics, for example. We monitor their performance. We provide the right motivations to them and their families.
Right.
Even though the other half, the wives, especially for Navy, when we sail out at sea, and sometimes it goes to 2 to 3 months, for example. So they have to be independent. We provide the necessary support.
Okay.
They have a very, very close-knit kind of a community, naval community. They help each other.
Right.
And we got this organization called BAKAT, Badan Kebajikan Angkatan Tentera, which does that function. And we have lots of facilities, infrastructures in our bases to ensure that the families are well taken care of.
Right.
And it goes along even after they retire.
Right.
When they retire, we encourage them to join the what do you call it, Persatuan Bekas TLDM.
So we have a lot of activities.
Yes, and we make sure that we know where they are, and
are they healthy?
Exactly.
Are they taken care of?
Especially their medical. We provide medical facilities to our retirees, and until they move on.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why I call it
from
cradle to grave.
Okay. And
like
for those who are watching right now, who are very interested, especially the youngsters are very interested in being a Navy, what criteria that they should have in order for them to be with the Navy?
Obviously, as I mentioned just now, they need to have the minimum criteria. For example, the fitness level, the physique, and the minimum of the academics, and all those details are actually, in fact, available in our Navy website. It's quite easy to remember.
Right.
www.navy.mil military.my. All those are available there.
Okay.
And we have got no problem in recruitment. In fact, we are always oversubscribed in the sense that obviously they like to join the Navy.
Okay.
But we do have very strict criteria, and because it's very important that we would like to have quality rather than quantity.
Can you mention what the strict quality or criteria that you're talking about? Strictly.
Yeah, basically the academics. Because in the Navy, especially when we are they're on board some of the modern ships, there are a lot of technologies on board. Submarines, for example, you need to have very, very strong knowledge in terms of actually the sciences and stuff like that.
Okay.
These are the difference, let's say, between the Navy and maybe the other two services. And we also, one thing that the challenge that we have, we would like to have more non-Bumiputra to join, even though we do have the
them coming in.
I just like to mention here, there are 4 ships that are commanded by basically non-Bumi.
Really?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Okay.
So, and on board the ship, as I say, very close-knit community.
Right.
So that's not a problem at all.
Right.
And this is a very classic example of the Navy contributing to nation building.
And you mentioned non-Bumi. How about females? Do you need more female?
Well, I would not want to say we need more females, but we do have enough females.
Right.
And they provide the necessary what do you call that task that's been given to them. There are a lot of people who would like to join, obviously, but they are constrained. One, obviously, the ships that we have got, not all of the ships that are equipped with facilities to accommodate ladies. So the bigger ships, they do. Yeah?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And also, obviously, the religious restrictions is something that we need to also address.
Right.
But we do have the females in our Navy, yes.
Now, once they become a Navy or Navy people, would they have chances of pursuing a higher education within the Navy?
Oh yes, again, as I mentioned just now, we take care of them.
Right.
So through life learning is also another concept that we give focus on in the Navy. So once they join the Navy, we in fact encourage them to pursue further enhancement, both on the individual and also in the academics aspects of things. So we do have PhDs in our navies, and we have a lot of courses and executive courses that provide not just whilst they are in the Navy, that also provide the opportunity when they leave the Navy later.
I see.
And this is also in line with the armed forces in general, where we do, before they retire, they're given the necessary skill sets to prepare them for the next career.
Right, to
when
be
they
a
leave the armed
civilian.
forces. That's right.
In a way. Right. Now, before, when you were a Navy, now that you are the Admiral or Vice Admiral, you see people coming in. Do you see any difference in terms of people, trying to get into Navy? Do you think that the ones before, like your time, will have more credibility than the ones right now? Would you say that?
It's very interesting questions here. I mean, they are positive and negatives.
Okay.
I think during those years, people are very determined and very, very fully committed, and also the challenges that we are facing now with our younger, the Y generation,
right. The lower half of the alphabet.
That's right. Yeah, they're more maybe individualistic. They like to be
outspoken, probably.
Outspoken in a way, and they like more gadgets kind of thing.
Into technology.
So to bring that, generations into the Navy, they have to interact better as a team, as a family.
Right.
Is something that we do to ensure that at the end of the day we will able to maintain the right quality of people in the organization.
So you do see the difference between your time and the youngsters nowadays.
Yes. I mean, nowadays you can see around people, they are more easygoing and wanting shortcuts in life. But I told that there's no shortcuts in life.
Right.
You have to work.
To gain something, Right.
So you have to achieve excellence. So that is a challenge that not just the Navy, not just the Malaysian Navy. I think when I talk to my colleagues and other navies as well, they all face the same challenges.
Right. Now, interestingly, you mentioned your colleagues or your counterparts around the world. Where do you see the Royal Malaysian Navy? Are we on par with the other maritime or navy internationally?
Yes, I mean, by tradition, we are very much historically from the British Navy, the Royal Navy.
Yes.
So we do have a lot of traditions that we take on from them, and obviously we also benchmark ourselves with the Royal Navy and also like the other navies around the world that are focused on very much excellence.
Okay.
So we are not just at par, but in certain areas we believe that we have got niche over them. But in the other areas, there are still gaps that then I think we should be addressing, and we attempt to close that gap to be at least a bit. So there are many aspects of things that we can measure when we talk about measuring performance. This is one of those requirements or focus that we're giving ourselves.
Right.
We all relate to managing performance in whatever that we do. Everything gets measured, gets done.
Right.
That's right.
And in terms of cooperation, especially in the ASEAN region, are we good with our neighbors? Are we,
Yeah, we are excellent, I would say.
Okay.
We are in terms of especially the ASEAN network. Malaysia obviously is chairing ASEAN this year. The classic example is just a recent Lima that we just had in Langkawi. That's the best Lima ever.
Really?
Yeah, I mean the minister have set that target, and we are all very proud to say that we have achieved this target in the sense that you can see the number of navies that came. In fact, on the defense ministers, all the 10 ASEAN defense ministers were there. The number of chief of navies that
came
participated, and also the number of ships that our naval partners brought in to Langkawi. So this, in a way, testify and also demonstrated the level of very good relation that we have with the cooperation with the other naval forces.
Okay, right. We have to go for another short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more on this matter right here on Hello Malaysia.
Terima kasih. Sama-sama. Terima kasih. Sama-sama. Terima kasih. Sama-sama. Terima kasih. Sama-sama. Sama-sama.
Satu cerita, satu bangsa, satu Malaysia.
kesan masa, mengupas isu semasa, menjadi saluran pelbagai suara, segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
And welcome back to Hello Malaysia, and we are celebrating the Royal Malaysian Navy 81st anniversary, and in the studio we have Vice Admiral Datuk Sri Ahmad Kamarul Zaman, the Deputy Chief of Navy. And before we went for a break, we were talking about the human capital or the Navy people, and you would like to mention the core values of this Navy people. What would that be?
Yes, these are four core values that we uphold
strive
on. Yes. Number one, obviously, is honor, loyalty, courage, and pride.
Okay.
Obviously, when we talk about honor or marwah, in Malay, marwah, we goes right from the individual themselves, the honor to God, Allah, and honor to the family,
right,
and to the institution, to the organization, and obviously to the nation as well. Loyalty is again very much related to that as well, and in the organization, especially for the armed forces and military organization, we have to be loyal,
right,
to again from the level of individual, organization, and to the nation. That's very important.
Very important. Okay.
Very important. On courage is more than just courageous of
stand
being,
in front of the line. No, it's not that.
The usual. No. The way I would look at it is more than that.
Okay.
We're talking about being to transform the Navy as we evolve with time. You have to be courageous enough to accept changes, to make changes, because changes is not easy to do.
Right.
So you need to be very courageous to do that, to ensure that you're able to move on, to push, adopt continuous improvement into the organization.
Right. And in your opinion, what kind of transformation has been done, besides the technology part and also the human capital? What kind of transformation would you like to see?
Well, I mean, the concept that we adopted, doing more with less, for example, is it's not easy.
Right.
Therefore, we have to improve a lot of our processes. Look at how we do things before, and ourselves, how can we do things better,
right,
easier,
right, simplify
cheaper,
it,
that kind of thing. Yeah. So all this require us to be very focused in what we do.
Okay.
And to do that, this is something the courageous of you taking risks.
Right.
Because when you're talking about managing changes, adopting change, obviously you got to look
have
at
some
risk
courage
as well. So
right, there will be risk, and from risk we have to have courage too.
Certainly, and finally, obviously, pride.
Okay.
You need to have a sense of pride in yourself.
Right, and wearing the uniform.
Organization,
right.
The image of the organization, in this case the Navy, and also pride of what you produce. This is very, very important. It relates to how passionate you are.
Right.
So you put all the passion and pride into what you do. Normally, it would be something that the outcome of the product or the output is going to be a very a good one.
Right.
Very,
and as far as you can see, are you maintaining these four core values?
We have to.
Okay.
This is something that we tell ourselves, we remind our young sailors and young officers as they go into the system. These four core values, or nilai murni TLDM, is something that they must not just rememorize, but they need to actually uphold it. That's very important for us to be organization that is focused on excellence.
Right. And besides taking care of our maritime and the sovereignty of our maritime, what will be the other tasks for the Royal Malaysian Navy?
Well, there are a host of other tasks being given to the Royal Malaysian Navy. The other one that I would like to touch on is basically in providing humanitarian aid and disaster relief operations.
Okay.
Nowadays, with the change of environment, there have been increase in number of disasters, casualties around the world. We have seen this in the tsunami in Aceh, for example, the typhoon in Haiyan in the Philippines, for example, and also the recent floods in the East Coast of Malaysia. So the Navy, together with the other services and also other agencies, have always to be over ready.
Okay,
to provide
over ready.
Ever ready.
Oh, ever ready.
Ever
Okay.
ready to provide this
Okay.
assistance. In order to do this, obviously, you need the not just the right assets, but also
The right
people
people?
that train and to do that. But currently, we do have constraints in the sense that I mentioned the ships are old. And,
Right.
we have got plans to have they call it the multi-role support ship, which are the big support ship that will provide all this capacity to provide logistics and also medical aids and even hospital on board, that you can position the ship to places where anywhere in our region and ready to provide the necessary assistance.
I see.
Currently, we do have that limitation, but we still be able to provide up to a certain extent.
Right.
Where in the Navy just now, our divers, for example, provide rescue missions, search and rescue operations whenever it's needed.
Right.
So these are some of the things that we do provide. Other than that, we call it the corporate social responsibility.
Okay, the CSR.
Yes, CSR. But I like to use maybe the NSR, the National Social Responsibility, rather than the corporate.
Okay.
Yeah, we do provide mercy flights, for example. Our naval aviators, naval pilots, are very experienced and they can fly all weather. 24/7, flying into even though the orang asli kampong and bring out people that really need emergency medical assistance. And this is something that we are ever ready to assist the rakyat.
Right. Now, by saying that, we also have people who kept putting down on the Royal Malaysian Navy, especially on the assets that you have. So what do you say to these people who does not have faith, I can call it, towards the ships that you have or assets that you have? What would you say to these people?
Well, I mean, the classic example was maybe if you recall sometime back on the submarine.
Submarines, yes.
They were saying that the submarine
could not submerge,
could not dive.
Yeah.
But the way I would look at it is basically awareness and understanding.
Okay.
Maybe we fail in actually communicating some of
with
those
the people.
Things, yeah.
Right.
So I used to had this experience engaging with a group of politicians, the opposition included, in Langkawi sometime back, when I've been tasked to explain to them. So the way when I brought them into the submarine,
okay.
So there were 2 points they were talking about. I knew it. One is obviously they said the submarines are very expensive,
right?
And then the other one is the submarine cannot dive.
Right.
Why we're paying something expensive why it cannot dive? So I very quickly work out something to communicate to them something that they can relate to.
Okay.
So I just told them that cost is very
of
subjective.
course it's going to be high.
Cost is something very subjective, very
right.
relative. You buy a car for BMW for someone, it's cheap, and the other one is very expensive.
Right.
But if you can able to relate it to maybe
the capabilities.
I relate it to on English football club.
Okay.
So by asking individual, which are the
teams that they're supporting. Okay.
And I told them, then they start to understand and say that, for example, before we have the submarine, we are considered not even Division 3 in the UK League, for example.
Okay.
But once you have the submarine, you are, if not Premier, you are obviously the first division.
I see.
Then I saw everybody nodded.
Right, and their eyes go big like
because
that.
it's a different league.
I see.
When you have that, it's a different capability altogether.
Right.
And I told them that's basically buying a submarine. But sustaining that capability of a submarine force is just, again, maintaining a Division 1 or a Premier Division club. It's not cheap, but it's worth because, as I say, it provides a very high deterrence factor as far as naval capability is concerned.
Right.
And everybody nodded, and which I thought that would be interesting. And then I relate to explaining to them about submarine and relate to something that you and I all can understand.
Okay.
It's just like an aircraft.
Okay.
Everybody took flights, and they know. So whenever the pilot is already on board, everybody's on board. If the pilot start to see one lamp or bulb
right.
which is not littered up.
Right.
And he goes to a checklist, and he goes there and it's not littered up. He will put a cross.
Yes.
It does not mean that the aircraft cannot fly.
Yes.
It just means that the aircraft is not cleared to fly until that particular indicator is been sorted out,
right.
and what caused that lamp to not
lead.
Or to lead it red, for example, to lead it red, being addressed. So similarly, when I explain to that, it's just that is the issue.
Right.
It's just that it needs to be cleared, and because that submarine was under warranty at that point in time, so we have not cleared it to let it
dive.
So when everybody says,
now we understand.
So I think at the end of the day,
right,
it's all about managing perception.
But the thing is, after you explain that, we don't hear that. Them explaining, okay, the things have been explained to us, and things like we don't hear that.
Yes,
they only stop until that. Oh, we bought a very expensive submarine, but they cannot dive. But that's it. Okay. But we have to go for another short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more on the Royal Malaysian Navy 81st anniversary right here on Hello Malaysia.
Dibelenggu kebankrapan semuanya bukan pilihan. Saya pernah cuba dibantu, namun saya tidak hiraukannya kerana saya merasakan MDI akan bertindak kejam terhadap saya. Sehinggalah kebankrapan mula mengganggu hidup saya. Saya hilang punca untuk meneruskan kehidupan. Akaun saya dibekukan. Apa nasib keluarga saya? Selama ini saya menyangka MDI zalim yang membangkrapkan saya. Ternyata sangkaan saya meleset sama sekali.
Jabatan Insolvensi Malaysia, bukan kami yang membangkrapkan anda. Jangan takut atau risau untuk tampil ke depan. Berilah kerjasama agar kami dapat membantu anda. Layari www.insolvency.gov.my.
Together, let's treasure our mangrove.
Bicara isu semasa. Merangkumi segenap ruang. Semuanya dalam ruang bicara secara langsung Isnin hingga Jumaat hanya di Bernama TV.
Latest headlines, illuminating visuals, everything right and now on Bernama News.
And welcome back to Hello Malaysia with me and also the Vice Admiral Datuk Seri Ahmad Kamarul Zaman, Deputy Chief of Navy. And we would like to talk about the Royal Malaysian Navy 81st anniversary. So what are we looking, or is there any events coming up for this anniversary?
Yes. As the fact that we are having this 81st anniversary for our Malaysian Navy, it is basically recognizing all those who have contributed immensely to yes. Obviously those who have left us, because what the Navy that we have today is basically based on
what
they have actually contributed over the
towards
years.
the 81 years.
Yes, certainly. So it is that recognition and also tribute to those that who have retired, but still they are supporting the Navy in the sense that providing the support.
Because they're still Navy people.
Exactly, they are still Navy people. You got it there, right?
Right.
And also to say thanks also the Navy that are still serving of their huge contribution. Their commitment, their passion that they put over the years is something that we really in Navy appreciate very much. Also, we would need to thank the government. Despite the scarce resources, we are still able to provide safety and also get some of those ships that we wanted in our plans. The latest being the 6 littoral combatant ships, LCS, which are actually now in built and ready for operations in 2019, for example. So we also need to thank all the agencies that are supporting us, our Army and our Air Force and the MMEA, for example.
So where is
so
this
there are
event?
a lot of hosts of activities.
So this event, where is it going to be?
It will be held in all the naval bases, naval establishment. But the main event will be in 3 locations. The main one will be in Lumut, obviously, and also Kota Kinabalu, and also in Kuantan. And where we will have the ceremonial parade on the 27th. And also ships that are open to visitors. So the 3 naval bases in Lumut, Kuantan, and Kota Kinabalu in Sabah. Public will have the opportunity to go into the base and go on board some of these ships. So,
but no submarines,
well, they will see the submarine, but they cannot go into the submarine.
Right.
Very strategic assets. But they can bring their cameras, whole family, and it will be a very fun day for everybody. Other than that, obviously, there are other activities to commemorate and to launch new infrastructure and that sort of thing. So it will be a very fun day for everybody. The details are all available, the programs and everything else on our website again, www.navy.mil.my. So it's all there, and I really hope that everybody can come in and join the celebration with all of us.
Right, we are almost to the end of the program. So what would you like to say to your fellow Navy people and also people out there?
Well, I mean, to the fellow Navy, Navy people, continue the good work. We need all your support and together to push the Navy to the next level up. And I think more importantly also, we need to thank the Rakyat. I think the Rakyat support, because the Navy is here for the Rakyat. I think it's very important that we need to recognize and for their continued support to us.
Thank you so much, Admiral, for being with us and explaining to us and about the Royal Malaysian Navy 81st anniversary. And thank you so much for tuning in to Hello Malaysia, and until we meet again real soon, I'm Surati Sanusi. Goodbye.